And I also think sometimes those experiments may not even yield something that we love, but it might teach us something and help leads us to experiment and kind of challenge our eye in ways that lead to something later.
Hey, I'm Brie Stockwell. I'm a nature photographer, owner of Wild Woman Photography, leading co-ed creative photography retreats and workshops for women. And I'm also the host of this podcast, Wild Women in Photography. Today's episode is part 2 of my special Women in the Wild series recorded at the recent Outdoor Photo Alliance conference. Join me as I chat with conference guests and wild women, Ariana DuPont, Monica Rasmussen, Kathy Winograd, and Darlene Sowers. I'm excited to share these inspiring conversations from female photographers filled with personal stories and conference reflections. Check out the episode description for links to their work and more. Now, on to the episode. Let's go. I just don't feel like there ever needs to be some sort of formal, hello, everyone. I'm here with Kristen
No,
Ryan.
there doesn't.
I know, right? So anyway, yeah. So Kristen and I were just chatting, which I love to do ahead of time. And we started talking about fog and Caddo Lake. And I was like, oh, she has some fog stories. So maybe we should just record.
I love fog.
Yeah, same.
And it always comes and goes when you least expect it.
I know. It's elusive, which is really fun.
Is.
So what I'd love to start with is not what you said in any of your form, but we were just before we were just talking about I just shared the episodes that I just did with that I just released with all these women at the Outdoor Photography Alliance's Women's Winter Conference. For me, it was so fun to record with women who maybe you probably never heard of before. And then I had asked, this is just by way of info for everyone. I asked Kristen if she's totally experienced that, being with women that are so interesting, but you don't know them because either they're not on social media or they just don't share their work out there,
Yeah, definitely.
I can't remember the quote you said. I was like, I want to write that down.
I don't know what I said. But it's true. That's one thing I love about hosting the women's retreats is you just get a variety of different women of all different ages, from all different places, with different backgrounds and, different photography experiences too. And I just find it amazing how we all come together, and it's those differences don't matter and only enhance the experience because everyone's just passionate about the nature and the photography.
Yeah. And there's something really special about a group of women being all together. And it was so interesting to be at this conference and have so many women all together. It was like the small group, but magnified.
Yeah, I can just imagine that would be the case.
Yeah. And even it was different than any other conference I've been to because I think the speakers, the presenters, felt free to share their emotions more or share more about themselves, to be more vulnerable. And that was really cool. And I think that's what happens when we all get together is because we have this there's something about women together. There's something that brings that out. We're like, oh, okay, we don't have to put on a mask or hide anymore. We can just be vulnerable with each other.
I definitely think that's the case. I know I see that in my retreats all the time. And I know I've definitely had people who come, it's they're out of their comfort zone because they've never had an experience like that before. But I think, I know people have asked before, why do women only, or why not men? And it's never been anti-men because
right.
I have male photography friends and love to engage with them as well. But there is like something that's just different when it's just women. And I know that some women who have come and it's been their first experience that they've felt comfortable in stepping out of their comfort zone because it is a group of all women. And I think they just feel more comfortable being vulnerable in their photography. And then also it like lends to that connection um, in other ways, right? Outside of photography and more about them as a person or, you know, whether that's their family or what, or, you know, what they do outside of photography, so to speak, right? So I just think it lends to that. And just in a different way than if it was men and women together.
Right. Like what we're saying is there's nothing wrong with men and women together. Like there are
No, there
so
isn't.
many workshops out there that
Yeah.
are like co-ed, and for sure, usually from what I've seen, and I could be totally
Yeah.
wrong. Someone message me and tell me if I'm wrong. A lot of the workshops are like mostly men with a little smattering of women, which is why it's so nice to have a space that's like just for women to share that. I've done them in the past, you do them, Colleen Minnick does them. There's a few
Yeah.
people that do them. In
Yeah.
fact, where's my book? Oh, I was just remembering how I met you is when it was early on in my photography journey, and like here we
Oh,
are on a
yeah.
podcast. Do you remember this
Yeah.
one?
Yeah. Oh, you have it right there. I love it.
I know because I
Yeah.
have all my books behind me and I just actually reorganized them. But
I love it
so
so much.
same. So Kristen is she's the founder of Women Capture Magic, the group.
Yeah.
Is that still going? Is it on Mighty Networks? Or tell me,
Yes, it is. It's still on Mighty Networks. So it's still there. It's I think like with all online things, you get like a little,
Mhm.
you get some activity and more quiet and I'd love to see people share more, although, it's I think I think it is what the online world is right now, right? But
Right.
yeah, it's definitely still there, and I still have the Instagram feature page for images. Um, but yeah, and we had a second book that we
Oh
did.
yeah.
I don't know whether another project is in the future. I think, the first book was during COVID,
Right. Which is
when Amy
yes.
Miller and Megan Arndt and I launched that first project, um, and Amy did all of the design and had approached me about a book project, and um, so we kind of took that her graphic design and an idea for a book with the community that I developed, and we brainstormed this whole project. So we did do a second one, and both books were like totally just the whole projects were you know just sort of passion projects, both Amy's design and then all the the work that went into it, but from the three of us. But it is tons of work, and of course it was like not for profit by any means. It was
Right.
just an avenue to, it was really meant as like a community project to bring the vision and art of all these women together. So I think it was really special also to give so many women like a platform
Yes,
to,
a voice.
yeah, to,
Uh-huh.
to have their work published and to have, that physical, there's something about when we print our work, right? It's like, I feel like you get it and you're like, oh, this is what I created, right? And so I think it's really special to have that collection of images from all these women together. But yeah, it's definitely tons of work. And now that we are several years out of COVID, it become like the second book took us, definitely was longer because we were, it was like, well, I'm out of town this week, and I'm out of town that next week, and I'm out of town the week after that. It's like, okay,
When can we get together?
in a month from now, we can do this next step.
Right, exactly. Well, here's the thing is I appreciated the group because I was so new in photography. I'm like, where are all the women?
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
joining a group where people were talking about things. And then I think this is my first publication where I had
Is
anything
it?
printed. I know I'm just sharing,
I
showing you
love
what my
it.
image was. I
Yeah.
mean, like
Yeah.
I never had an image printed before. And so I, I'm sure a lot of other women felt the same. They were like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
my image is in a book. How
Yeah,
amazing
there
is
were
that?
definitely a lot of women who said that. And that was, it was real, like you said, giving them a voice. It was special. And to have a platform where they felt comfortable too, to submit their work. And so, yeah, we were really, I have those in my living room on my coffee table, and it's fun. It's fun to flip through them and see all the
Yeah.
work of all the women. It's amazing. Like I looked through it just the other day. I was like, wow, like these images are amazing. And, I have to say too, is that, I mean, we loved all the images when we went through them online, but when we got the book, it was like, wow, like they look even better in the book than they did online, which I think is just another like encouragement to print your work.
Yes. Yes.
And I
Yes.
don't do it enough.
Right.
So I'm not
You guys,
necessarily like claiming to be the best example, but
okay, this is my new favorite way. This is also an ad for my thing, but
yeah.
but whatever, it's my podcast. No, this is my new favorite way to print work now. I mean, I like making the print unless I have a printer.
Yeah.
Whoops,
Yeah.
just hit my mic. But making it into like a zine format where it's like just
Yeah.
easy print and the images turned out really great. Let me see if I can find a really good example here. Like they print
That's
up nice,
beautiful. Yeah, that looks
right?
really nice. Yeah.
Right. And you can pick the paper that you want to, you can make it glossy, but this one's a satin and so it
Okay.
wears nice. And anyway, this is my by the way,
That's awesome.
this is my Through My Eyes zine, volume 1, Releasing Expectations. I'll put a
Oh,
link to it in the
very
episode,
nice.
only because we're talking about printing. But anyway, but
Yeah.
I I think it's really fun to just print something.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is anybody can do that. Like
Right.
anybody can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. We all should do it more. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I believe that. I think the hard thing is, I mean, and even like our projects, we had all this work and, we had all these images and it's
Right.
like
So many.
choosing the images and then, like Amy kind of, well, we put it, they were in categories. Amy ordered them, kind of to try and make them, appear nice next to each other and whatnot. But like, there's so many decisions. Like,
Yes.
I think that's where we get to, like decision paralysis. I mean, even I like look or like I have images up on my walls, and like I love them, and they're from like 8 years ago, right? But like, I also know there's some that I could replace, and I do have some empty space. But it's like, but which image, and how
Mm.
big, and what kind? Like, is it frame? Do I do metal? Do I do, it's like so many decisions that you just end up like not doing it, right? Because you're like, oh, decisions, decisions, decisions. Like,
Decision fatigue is a real
just,
thing.
it
Decision
is.
paralysis.
Yes.
But once you
Yeah.
find the great thing is like once you find the thing that works for you, it's easier to make the next decision.
Yes.
Like
Yeah, that's true.
there's certain paper that I love and so now I just have it and so someone says I want this print and I'm like, "Great. That's what I use." Right? Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah,
it's big.
the last image I printed, well, actually I printed a winter image and I hung it in the hallway down in my basement. But before that, I printed an image from June or July of 2020. And it was an image I had wanted to print for years. Like
Mm.
I'd printed it for other people, but I had never printed for myself. And finally I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to print this. And it was like a very textured piece. So I did it on canvas and was like, I think I printed it like 8 by 12 because I was like, okay, this can pretty much go wherever, and I put it in my sunroom and I love it. It just sits in like this small space when I got it, I was like, and put it there, I was like, I wish it was bigger, but it wouldn't have fit in that space if it was
Mm,
bigger. But sometimes the light just comes into my sunroom and I always sit on in there in the mornings and I can see it. And sometimes the light hits it. It's trees. It's like an intimate scene, like a 600 millimeter of evergreen trees where the light
mm.
was like shining through them. And sometimes the light just hits the canvas in the morning, like just kind of the way that I felt like it was hitting the trees in the moment. And it's perfect. It like makes me just like really happy, and it's like, I feel like that's how your images should make you feel when you get them on print in whatever, format that you do.
I
So,
was just thinking that that's what photography is about, is like enjoying the
hmm
moment that you make the image and then being able to bring it back and put it somewhere where you can like where you can relive it, but it
hmm
stirs up
that
um
emotion.
yeah, that
Yeah.
emotion again. And
Yeah.
also there's sometimes there's work in loving what you print or loving what you have. And so doing the work to really enjoy what you create
hmm
and then putting that on your wall, like in in your own home. Like
Yeah.
is is also a thing. I just had a bunch of people over
Yeah.
here on Saturday night and someone was like, "You're a photographer? You don't have anything in your house." And I'm like, "Oh shoot." So there are two in my husband's office. And there is one here behind me. I don't know if you could see,
Yeah.
um but it's true.
Yeah.
I really don't have very much of my own work in my house. So
Yeah.
sadly. Mm,
Yeah, some of mine need to be updated. But like our
mm.
bedroom wall above our bed like is totally empty and I always think, oh, why do we I mean, we've lived in this house since 2007. And I'm like, why? And but like I'm like, oh, but what should I put there? Like, and I just have never decided. And then I'm like, well, what if I print it and it's kind of big and then I don't like it? And I guess I just print something different, but you don't want to waste the money on it, right?
I know.
But yeah.
I like looking at other people's art too. So
Yeah.
I'd rather have like a painting or somebody else's. Like behind me, I have a whole art wall, and most of it
Yeah.
is other people's work because that's fun for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
to see
Well,
other
it's
people's
fun.
work.
Yeah. It's fun to have a variety of different artists and styles, right?
Hmm.
In your home. So,
Yes.
yeah.
So fun. So now can we talk about your photography?
Sure.
Did you guys hear how
if we
uncomfortable she was just
if
now?
if we must.
It is kind of funny to like come on these things and like talk about yourself a little bit.
Sometimes.
I know it kind of makes you feel a little self-absorbed, but here's what I think. I think it's fun to hear other people's like, well, we're not just gonna talk about your photography, we're gonna talk about like your
Right,
experiences,
right,
but I think it's fun to
right.
hear from other people and how they experience the world um through their own photography or through their own you know, I guess adventures in the world.
Yeah.
And and I know that I've learned a lot from people hearing what they have to share too,
hmm
you
Yeah,
know?
I definitely agree with that. I always, as much as you learn yourself, like listening to other people, their experiences and how they see things and approach things, you always get like little tidbits that, you know, kind of teach you new ways of looking at things or give you like lead you down a path, right, to thinking about things differently or just something that you might try or how to think about something.
Agreed. I totally agree. And what I thought was interesting that you said in your forum was like, well, you said I don't have any disastrous experiences, and you're like, I kind of play it safe, which I think is totally fine because when we're in the
My
wilderness,
husband would laugh. He'd be like, "You like play it safe, really?"
well, when
I am definitely like fairly what's the word? Cautious? Yeah.
yeah,
God,
risk
tend to be
adverse.
cautious. I am, yes, I am a little bit risk averse. I have to push myself a little bit I definitely like to be prepared and yeah, that's, and I don't think being a mom, I think exacerbates that too. Like I was always kind of a careful person. Like my mom said, she really didn't worry about me that much after I got my driver's license. My brother, on the other hand, was a totally different story. But she knew I was just careful, but which is not to say like, that means you're never at risk, but do tend to be somewhat cautious.
Yeah, but what's funny is even when we are so, we still have things
Yes.
that happen, and partly it's
Yeah.
because, if we really were super 100% risk averse, so like we wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, and
We just
you can never predict everything, right? Yeah. Well, and that's exactly true. Like, I mean, I definitely have like anxiety about a lot of things when I travel and go places and leave my kids at home and I'm off adventuring and, you're driving places without cell service and going into the mountains. And, I mean, my husband's always like, don't get eaten by a bear, every time I go, and driving, driving at 3 a.m. after shooting stars. And, there's lots of things that, in theory, like could go wrong, even if you're prepared. Right. But
yeah.
yeah. But
Well, and
yeah, I can't think of anything super disastrous.
That's okay.
I
We have
could,
some things to talk about. Well, what I love is you spend a lot of time in the Tetons. I know it's your happy place.
yeah.
And I don't actually know if I'm assuming that this was in the Tetons. And so speaking of bears,
Huh.
and this I just you had said in 2023, it's like a year and a half ago,
Yeah. Yeah.
you hiked with one of your friends at sunrise to one of your favorite lakes. And what I think is so interesting is we can be cautious, we can be prepared, we can know all the things, right?
Hmm.
And still have moments, right? So
Yes.
tell us about that. You guys, she's here to tell
Yeah.
the tales, so
Yeah. So, well, so it's interesting because that trip, I actually saw two bears while hiking. This was the second one. It was the end of the
Of course
trip.
you did.
The retreat was over. This was actually, it was in days after the retreat that I was hiking to the lake for sunrise. But when I first had gotten to the Tetons, I went for a hike by myself, just a short, like 3 mile hike, very busy trail, middle of the day. And a black bear went onto the trail, like not terribly far in front of me. And I was like, "Ooh." And I just kind of backed up and it went off the trail the other direction. And I kind of continued back the other way since I was alone. I did have my bear spray. I took it out and was holding it. And then I ran into two teenage boys, or actually, they might have been older than teenage. They might have been like 20s, but they seemed young to me.
We're older now, and so they just keep looking
so
younger.
They were toddlers. They were
100%.
No.
They didn't wait. Let me guess. They didn't have water. They didn't have
bear spray. No, they didn't have bear spray. No.
Yeah.
And they decided to keep going. And then I ran into a mom with two kids, and she also didn't have bear spray. At that point, I decided I would keep going with them because they were going to keep going. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'll come along with you because I have bear spray. And we didn't see the bear. People come the other direction, didn't see the bear. I mean, it was a very populated trail. The bear just went off and did its own thing. So, but anyway, so I've been going out to the Tetons since I was itty bitty. And we didn't do, when I was growing up, we did mostly like kind of half day hikes, what my mom and my grandpa were able to do. I used to go trail running when I was in my like late high school, college years.
So toddler age. Just kidding.
Right. When I was a toddler. I really wasn't even that worried about the bears. I don't think and I did read this in a book, but the bear population is greater now. So
interesting.
there weren't as many bears. Yeah, there weren't as many bears then. And also back then, it still is the case, like there's more grizzlies more north in the park and the trail that I was on in that June, and also that I went trail running, they were a little more south. But I did read in a book that there's a greater bear population. But like I like literally never saw a bear like when I'd be out hiking. In fact, in my in my 20s when my husband and I were dating, we hiked all the highest points in the backcountry. So we did over a couple 2 or 3 years, we did like several camping trips. We hiked all the highest points, the divides. We didn't see a single bear, not one. I don't think that that would be the case today. But in any case, I didn't really worry about them so much. But so, so in all of my like 40 some years of going out there and hiking, I remember I could probably like, I only remember one distinct bear encounter coming down from Surprise and Amphitheater Lake. I was 11 weeks pregnant with my oldest son. And when we were coming down, a black bear crossed the trail, like really in front of me, like really, really fairly close. And it just went off into some huckleberry bushes, and some teenage boys came up behind, again, toddlers. Just kidding.
So
Teenage
funny.
boys came up behind us, were like heckling the bear. And we just like kind
What?
of, we just kind of went around when we were able to, because it was like switchbacks. Um, and that's the only like really distinct bear encounter that I remember in all those years of hiking out there. And then I get out there on this trip, and my second hike, I did 3 hikes. The second one, I saw this black bear, and then I had the retreat, and then I did this last hike for sunrise with my friend. So we go, and I was a little nervous because when we were deciding whether to go. I was like, I'm a little more nervous than I normally am. I mean, I always know you could see a bear, right? But I'm a little more nervous because I just saw the bear like 5 days ago. So anyway, but we went, and we had a great sunrise, and we left the lake, and we were about a half a mile from the lake, about a mile to go to the trailhead. And my friend was leaving on a flight, and I was too, but not as early. And so we're all of a sudden we heard this like squeal, and I was like, "What was that?" And I like just started backing up. My friend saw, she's like, "That was a bear." She's like, "I think it was 2 bears." It's like scurrying through like the bushes and the brush. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So we just kind of back up, and we just start talking, making noise, got our bear spray out and ready. And we see the bear like stand up on its legs and like just kind of pivot. And it didn't look directly at us, but it was like looking around. I'm pretty sure it was very quick. So I can't be 100% positive, but I think that one was a grizzly. And I think it was a grizzly because it looked like the first one I saw was a black bear, like no doubt, 100% sure. And this one looked different in that like few moments that I had to look at it. And I also know that it's in an area where it's the same hike I did my first day that I was out there that trip. And I ran into some people. I was like, "You seen any bears?" And they're like, "No." But we ended up not going this one way on the trail because we were told that there was a grizzly in the area. And that's the same area that we were in.
That's why you were nervous.
Maybe. So so anyway, yeah, so we saw it at like, we saw it, and it went down, and we saw the direction it went across the trail. And so we just kind of like, we stayed away, we kept making noise, we got our bear spray out. And the trouble is like we really had to go that direction because we really like we didn't really have time to, you could do a loop, but to do the loop, we would have gone back a half mile to the lake and then another 2.3 miles the other way because that direction was longer. And it's also more, it's less populated because people more frequently do the up and back on the route, the shorter route that we went to the lake. So, yeah, so we're like, okay, what do we kind of really need to get out of this place and back to the trailhead. So we just kind of waited a little while, kept making noise, and like gradually we're just had the bear spray at the ready and just were like, "Hey bear, hey bear." We made our way around where the bear was. You could smell the bear where it had
Mm.
stood up. And then there we saw like 3 different couples of hikers or little small groups of hikers after that. We're like, just FYI, there was a bear. I'm sure they didn't even see the bear. Like they probably, bear ran off. But it was pretty unnerving, I guess you could say. And my friend too, no one even thought about pulling out a camera. Like there was no camera. Like,
Right.
because my husband the first time was like, "Did you get a picture?" I was like, "No, I was just, concerned about getting back to you alive."
You don't do a lot of wildlife photography, do you? Like if they're in your
I
photos?
I don't do it. No, I don't do a ton. I'd love to have them in my photos when they come about. And I'm actually would like to spend some more time doing wildlife photography, but I haven't dedicated a sole trip to wildlife photography.
So that's a little bit how I am, or maybe I'm even more than you because I'm like, great if they're in my images, I'll
Hmm.
take it. Because I think that's part of the landscape, but I don't
Yeah.
seek out the
Okay.
animals. And so I think, whoops, just hitting my mic for
That's
everybody.
okay.
So then when I do see like animals in the wild, I have to remind myself, oh, this is what I do because I'm not familiar with their behavior. And
Yeah.
so, like, if you were photographing bears a lot, like if you were going up to Alaska and photographing different kinds of bears or whatever, um, I think that there would be a more, not that you want to be comfortable with them, but a
Yeah.
familiarity,
Yeah.
knowing their behavior really, I think affects how you feel and act around them. And for sure, there's like certain things you do, right? So
Right.
you did what you're supposed to. You're supposed to get big, right? Grizzlies, you're
Yeah.
supposed to get big,
Yeah.
right? And make a lot of noise. Is that for all bears? Can't remember.
Well, you kind of like you don't like if the grizzlies attack you, you like play dead.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Don't fight back
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you want them to know that but yeah, like you want them to know you're human and yeah,
You're
and
not
kind of
food.
be loud. Yeah, that you're not food. Yeah. Where black bears like yeah, you would fight back because like they actually like if they're actually going after you, you know, you would want to fight back against them. Like grizzlies, they more attack you just to like they're not they're not really wanting to eat you, is what I've learned. Like, but they they're mostly just trying to attack you if they think you're a threat.
Mm.
But you're not really food for either one,
No, you're not.
you know?
That's why we put our food away in bear boxes and such
Yes, exactly.
when you're
But
out in
I
the
think the
wild.
thing is like it's just I think regardless of whether maybe if you encounter them more and you feel like you know what they're going to do that makes you more comfortable, but I don't know, just being out on a trail. I mean, I think
Hmm.
that's different than like seeing them where you have an escape like in your car,
Right.
you know, and especially when they're in the direction that you need to go.
Right. Where you're like, what happens if I cross the path where the bear just was? Is it,
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know that a bear would be like waiting, like a mountain lion would be, you know?
Yeah, I don't I just feel like it's like unnerving regardless of anything else, you know? It's like, I don't want to get closer to that bear.
Yeah. And it's still the hazard of nature, photographing in nature. Like
Yeah,
um, there is always going to be things that happen in nature that are unexpected that you can kind of prepare for. Like you
right.
had bear spray, but you don't
Yeah.
know, maybe you don't know when it's going to happen. And if
Hmm.
it's too dangerous, you don't want to put yourself in the way unless you're like Jen Walton and you're like, bring me, bring me a tornado or, you know,
That,
I
oh my
can't
gosh. You
do
know,
it.
it is interesting because I swear if I wasn't like so nervous, I would totally be a storm chaser. I like storms fascinate me.
Oh,
but
she's going to listen to this and be
tornadoes,
like, come on, Kristen, let's go.
oh, I'm like clouds and their changes, like whatever it is that fascinate me in storms. Like I just love to watch that kind of thing. Like I think it's fascinating. But what happens always here, if we get tornado warnings, they're always in the dark. Like it's always when it's dark. And I'm like, well, that's not even helpful. Like if there is one, I can't even see it. But yeah, I feel like if I wasn't so nervous, I would totally go chase the storms. But I don't like
Yeah.
I like driving with like potential stormy weather is definitely not something I'm a fan of. So
I, so that's so interesting because I think that, well, for sure. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. But when you go with someone who like knows what they're doing, they know how to track the storm. Okay. Like
yeah, that would be different. Yeah, that would potentially be different.
there's still always stuff that happens.
Yeah, like suddenly the storm like changes its direction on you, or I don't know. I don't know. Kind of one of those things.
That's why,
Maybe someday when all my children are gone, I'll be like, I'll go risk it.
see, all right. So we got a few more years before we can do that.
I don't know. I love when you're like, I love when you're in the mountains and you can see storms. Like when you're in
Hmm.
wide open places and you can see storms at a distance from you, like that's very cool. Like I love to watch storms, but I remember we were driving. It was 2020 when we drove out to the Tetons because because of COVID and I had a reservation, and so we canceled the ideas of any other trips and we drove out there. But we were driving through South Dakota and we were driving and there's this big storm in front of us and lightning, and I've got my camera up to the windshield and I'm like, this is awesome. And then we hit the rain. And I was like, this is not awesome.
Uh-huh.
It was so bad. I mean, my husband, who's like a super calm driver, was like, I can't see anything. It was so bad. And I was like, this is not cool. Like, it was really cool when we were far back and we could see the storm. But now that we're in it, not so much.
I know. And when you can, yes, when you see how dark it is, like the cooler they are, the worse they are, right?
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
well,
Yeah.
I um I love waiting out the storm
Yes.
because when you get to the end, then there's really amazing. I didn't know this. I just was like, "Oh, the storm's over. Great. Sun
Yeah.
is back." But now that I photograph in nature, I'm like watching for the storm because I'm like, when
Yeah.
it's over, there could be some really cool light.
Yeah.
And so going places where you can have interesting weather can be really fun.
Yeah.
Um, but
Definitely.
so you talk about you you talk in your form about, and I know I mentioned the form a lot, but um, what do we do? Like it's always going to be amazing when there's something interesting, like a storm that's finishing passing or fog, which we can talk about in a minute. But like, what happens when there's nothing? What happens when you go and you even said, I have trips when the weather forecast is less than
Yeah.
ideal. And I'm like,
Pretty much all the time.
that means it's like bluebird days and there's nothing. And, or there's like barely a wisp of a cloud in the sky.
Yeah.
And like, what do you do in those times?
Well, you get a little frustrated.
So let that happen first. That's okay.
Yes. I mean, I think that's a reality, right? I mean, the reality is like, no matter like what you do, like wherever you go at whatever time of year, like you are never guaranteed like to have the weather that you would like order up, so to speak, right?
Hmm.
And especially, I mean, for most people, we can't travel all the time or go out photographing all the time because we have families or we have other jobs or whatever. So unless you're like, photography is my thing full time, 24/7, all every day, like, you're to some extent at the mercy of what you get, right? So I feel like ever since I started in landscape photography, it's like, oh, I'm going here and I've been waiting forever to go. And now look at the forecast. It's like clear, 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 clear. Or like, rainy, overcast, like something just like not what you would wish for, right? And but that's all you have. Like I've got this week or 5 days or whatever it is, like this is what I get. I either go or I don't go, but this is my weather. And so like I think over the years I've just learned, because I pretty much always, I mean, if I was with my family, maybe sometimes I didn't because I just enjoyed family time, but I would go anyway. And it's like, well, I'll just go, and maybe it will be different, or maybe it will, you know, something will happen that's not in the forecast, whatever the case may be. And I almost always, pretty much always found something. And sometimes it wasn't necessarily what I would have expected or hoped for, right? But usually I would come away with something that was beautiful and a moment that made me want to click the shutter. So sometimes it just was like, well, that might not have been what I would have ordered from Mother Nature, but like I found something beautiful in the time that I was out and it wasn't what I expected. So I feel like sometimes it's more work. Sometimes you have to like look a little harder. Maybe you have to drive a little bit more. Sometimes maybe you have to like step back and just let yourself be okay with not taking a picture. Um, and then something will surprise you and be like, oh, like, you notice something that you wouldn't have noticed maybe. I mean, a lot of the time that whole weather thing is related to the sky. I mean, it's because the sky is dramatic, like, or the clouds. And I love clouds. Like my kids are like, Mommy, you got your clouds. Like they laugh at me, but clouds create drama, whether it's colorful light or stormy light or the light rays, or I mean, even just the clouds create those pockets of light. So that, like, in one moment, like one tree is amazing, and then in the next moment, a different tree is amazing. Um, but I think that sometimes if we just like take a moment and just enjoy being out there, even when the weather isn't maybe what you'd wish for, sometimes you see things differently. And I also think sometimes those experiments may not even yield something that we love, but it might teach us something and help leads us to experiment and kind of challenge our eye in ways that lead to something later. So I mean, the other thing is that we have to take advantage of, I think, what we're given. So like, say we are given clear skies, I mean, your sunrise and sunset, it's still beautiful light. There's usually certain moments that you can capture. It just might not maybe last as long. But so then it comes like, well, okay, so maybe we didn't get like 25 images we love, but we got two, right? So then it's more about focusing on what we do get instead of what we didn't get. I mean, even in the Tetons, for example, like clear sunsets tend to be very short and uneventful, because once the sun goes behind the mountains, like if there's no clouds, there's no color, there's nothing. It might be toward the east, so you might look like around the valley, but it's not like kind of where the main attraction is, so to speak.
The thing.
But yeah, but um but there's usually beautiful light as the sun is going down to the mountains when it hits the mountains. So your highlight just needs to be shifted a little bit, instead of thinking, oh, this is not like nothing's going to happen. Well, it's not that nothing's going to happen. And the golden light will still hit the foreground, and the light will still hit the mountains. And then you also have potential of taking advantage of the stars if you're so inclined, which, if the sky is full of clouds, then you can't see the stars. So I think there's always something. And then even on the days, I mean, I think if you have like a total like steady pouring, drenching rain here in Illinois, I'm not
Mm,
so sure you're going to find a whole lot.
maybe.
But but I went out in like a steady rain in the Tetons, not this past fall, but the fall before, and I was like, well, I'm awake. And it was after the retreat. I was by myself. I woke up because I can't sleep there because I'm like, there's something better to do than sleep. And I'm like, oh, I'll drive around, see if I find some animals or whatever. And it was like no animals and it was just raining. But as I drove along, suddenly in one of the canyons, there's like low clouds like over the mountains. And like, that's gorgeous. So you just never know. You never know what you might find if you just get out there and are, I think, open to it. But I do think it's more challenging. And then there are some days where you're just like, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. And I think that's okay too. You don't have to take a picture all the time.
No, you actually don't.
You don't, right?
You
I mean,
don't. And I think sometimes the pressure to do that, especially when you're in a beautiful place, like
yeah.
like people feel the pressure. I mean, I felt it before. I mean, the pressure is all internal, of course, but um, you know, if you're in a beautiful location like the Tetons, it's like, well, I'm here. I should, right? And you could just not. That's
Yeah, I
okay.
mean, I think there definitely is that feeling, but yeah, it is okay. I mean, it's not about how many images can I collect. It's more, even though sometimes I feel that like not necessarily that way on a trip, but like a little bit like, okay, I'm an image collector when I'm away, and then when I get home is when I get to like kind of sit with them and take, kind of, take them beyond that initial capture, but yeah, it's not like, well, let's just see how many images we can get. It's really more, or should be, I think, about the experience when we're out there and the moments that do really grab your attention. Like those are the moments that are going to be really meaningful. The ones where you're like, oh, look at that, and that like really pull you into capturing something. I think what's the hardest thing is when we have weather that isn't the weather that makes us feel all the things. I don't really think it's necessarily about the images, at least not for me. Like, it's not that I'm not getting images or that I can't capture like something specific. It's more that when Mother Nature is like giving this dramatic sky or the clouds are floating past the mountains and it's changing all the time, like it makes you feel something constantly. Like as like one of my favorite
Hmm.
things to do is to just like drive, like if I'm staying after a retreat, or I'll just drive. Sorry, my dog is barking.
Oh, it's okay.
He's growling at someone walking. Um,
Love it.
is to just drive through the park and let the nature stop me, where I'm just driving and looking around and like something just like makes me pull over. Like that's one of my favorite things. And like to be out there and just be like in total awe of what's happening. I think that's like when you get like a totally clear day, that doesn't happen as much because it's just not changing as dramatically, over the course of the day. You're like, oh, it's just kind of the same as it was 2 hours ago, and I think for me anyway, it is that the lack of that awe of how it's changing that I miss, not necessarily that I'm not able to create an image that's amazing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And sometimes I go to a place and I'm like, I really want my favorite weather here. Like, I really wish, universe, weather gods, could you provide my favorite weather for this
Mm-hmm.
place? Right. And
Yeah,
so, and
right.
it's not that one particular kind of weather is boring necessarily. I do
No,
have,
but we all have,
I,
I think we all have weather that just makes us like, oh my gosh, that's
yes,
amazing. And
like
you just
light
want to
up.
feel that, right?
Yes.
Yes. I
Yeah. And
think
I
that
love that.
Yeah. I mean, I think even like if you think about like images you see that other people have taken, like if you really think about it, I mean, maybe there's some people that's like, oh, I just wish I had taken that picture, but I don't feel like, oh, I wish I had that picture. I just feel like I would have liked to have been standing there because that would be amazing, right? Like you want to experience it. Like that's my feeling anyway. It's like I just want to like experience that place or that amazing change in light. Like I don't want their picture. You know, if that makes, you know what I mean? It's
I don't know,
like
because
my,
sometimes I do. I'm like, I wish I
you want their
photographed
picture?
that. There
Well,
are a
I
few
mean,
I'm like, dang it.
yeah,
Shoot. I wish I
yeah.
photographed that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, it's like, oh yeah, I would love to have, taken that picture too. But but I know that for me, a lot of like when I feel that wanderlust, it's more like, I just want to be out there. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, but it's not even necessarily about the pictures, but I think that the love for photography combined with nature gets you out there to experience those things. I know there's a lot of experiences I wouldn't have had if the camera hadn't motivated me to be out with my camera. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And that's
Yes.
like, but I mean, even still, it's like I think about how many. I'm not a very quick editor, so like the number of images I've taken that I don't even get to. I mean, the picture doesn't even happen. So it's like, which was more important, the picture or the experience? The experience is what
Shoot.
counts, and if I never edit the picture, I still had the experience. I still was there. And that's what really matters. Like, it's not if somebody else sees my picture. Um, so
Yeah, but the image afterwards adds to the experience. And it's
it
kind of one of
does.
those chicken and the egg things where I wouldn't be out there. Like I'm the whole time you're talking, I'm thinking about being at Caddo Lake, like that, like
Hmm.
the swamps of East Texas, right? There's no
Yeah.
way I on purpose get in a kayak and paddle through the swamp with with thousands of dollars of camera gear, like in this little kayak, unless I'm wanting to photograph. Like that
Right.
that was never going to happen on,
Right. I mean, that's
just
definitely true.
right.
At
But
like
and
4 in the morning, no less, right?
oh, well, it's not
Or
actually
whatever it
that.
is.
It's
Yeah.
never that early, but yeah,
Yeah.
so good. Yes, but like Halloween night and like, early Halloween morning and we're paddling through the dark somewhere and
Yeah.
it feels creepy. Anyway, but But so it is, I feel like it is the chicken and the egg because I wouldn't be out there if not for photography. But it
Yeah.
is the
That's true.
experience, the actual being present in the experience that's the most important to me. And
Mhm.
then I get the feedback of the images afterwards, which is initially why I went out there in the first
The
place.
first place. Yes.
Yes, but then it inspires me to go back out and have the whole thing again, with or
Yeah.
without fog, with the rain, with the sun, with all of the different kinds of weather. And I'm still going to love it and I still know that no matter what, I'll make images that I actually really like because I trust myself to do that.
Hmm.
But I do and I was thinking when we were talking about weather, when it's just, when it's super gray and flat,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yes.
talking about when the sun comes in just a little bit and peeks through the clouds or like diffuses through the clouds. I'm talking about
Yeah. Blanket.
super dense
Yeah.
blanket, not fog, not rain, nothing. It's just everything is super, super gray. I kind of have to sit there and really put on my creativity hat because I'm like, this is my least favorite weather for this place.
Yeah.
The colors don't feel as vibrant and interesting. Like I'm it feels a little lackluster or more that, it's the swamp. So it kind
Yeah.
of feels a little like dreary. And so I'm looking around and going, what can I love here? And so that to me is like, oh, it's not even like this is worst case scenario. It's like, I know this is going to be fun that I have this. Okay, if it happens like all the time, like over multiple days, you would get so sick of
Hmm.
it. Thank goodness
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. Um, but when that does happen, and I have had it like multiple days
Yeah.
before,
Hmm.
like a few outings in a row, and I'm like, oh, okay,
You're
still am
like,
gonna find something. But that's when I do like I'll do intentional camera movement, or
yes.
or you can find like cool vignettes in the trees, and that is when I
Hmm.
have to sit there and not pick up my camera and just enjoy being present and like super
Hmm.
present for the
Hmm.
experience, and then see what happens. Okay, now that I'm releasing all of the things that I want to have happen, now what? Now what? Now how can I just be here, enjoy this, and still make photographs? And that's kind of the fun part of having
Yeah.
the weather that you don't that you don't love, and then still
Yes.
hoping for your favorite, like hoping
Yeah.
so badly for your favorite, which for me and Cato is fog. So
Yeah.
I know we're almost finished. Can we talk about fog for you?
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about
I
fog.
feel
I
like that
love
would be
fog.
so fun to talk about fog for a minute.
I love fog. I mean, I think it's just so magical, like the way it creates such an ethereal, um, calming effect. I think I know, I've always felt this way, but I've become more and more aware that in my imagery that I really seek like like a calm and soothing feeling, which I think is stems from like my own personal anxiety and the fact that my life usually has felt very chaotic ever since I had 4 kids. Um,
I can totally relate to this. So I have 4 kids too, like, and mine are all grown now, but it still can be like that.
yeah.
But you're still in the thick of it, sort of.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because when my kids were little, so I had four of them 5 and under because my oldest was not quite 5 when I had my twins. And now they're all teenagers. So oldest is 19, just turned 19, and my youngest two are 14. So it's a different kind of chaos. It's not quite the physical running around, um, everything on the floor kind of thing like you had with the little ones, but more of like, the like helping them succeed in all their stuff and be happy and like so a lot huge like emotional and mental load, right? So like it's just like a very different effect. And so I think I almost realized it. I think I realized it when I got into the photography because I really got into it when my twins were babies.
As one does because of all the free time.
Right. But I had no free time, but I was like, I was, I was dying for something like a creative outlet for myself because I had been a freelance harpist and then I just really couldn't do that. And I was like, I
What?
got to do something else.
Wait, why have we never talked about this? I'm a
I wanna,
flutist. I'm a
are
classically
you?
trained flutist. We should get
There,
together.
I think there's a lot of musicians and
Yes.
like there's so many parallels with the technical and creative of
Hmm.
photography and music. But yeah, I was like dying for a new creative
That's awesome.
outlet. And so anyway, but I seek got all the way back there. So I just very much seek, I think, calm and like soothing in my images. And I think fog is like just the epitome of it's just ethereal and it's soft and I love it. But it's also so unpredictable, right? Like sometimes, I
Hmm.
mean, you can have too much of it, but I know, like
I
I've
don't know about
had,
that.
I've had
Depends on where you
where,
are.
I've had where like there's so much, it's like oh my goodness, and then where there's none, and it suddenly appears. But like, I know one of the stories I had put in that in your form is so back in 2013, I'm pretty sure it was
That's what you
2013.
said. Hmm.
I could
Wait,
be,
no, no, you're
yeah,
right. I think
yeah,
you're
I think it
probably right
was,
because it says
yeah.
2013 here because I'm looking at it.
Hmm.
But what I was wondering before you move on is
Yeah.
how normal is it to have fog in the Tetons?
Um,
Or is it like
it
seasonal?
happens. I mean, last winter on our winter trip, we had fog most mornings. I've had it in the fall, I've had it in June. It just really depends. When that temperature gets low to the dew point, you obviously is what creates fog. So it just kind of depends. I haven't seen it quite as much. I've seen it more like in the kind of spring, early summer, and then the fall and winter than I did when I was there, like as a kid in the summers. But it just kind of depends. But I've definitely had it a number of times. Um, but so on this particular day, I think it was in September. I'm pretty sure it was 2013. So that year they closed the road to Schwabacher's Landing, which is one of the most iconic locations people shoot in the Tetons. And it's very well known. So not revealing a location that is not revealed everywhere. But the road down from the highway, it wasn't closed, like it was just closed for driving, but you were allowed to park at the top of the road and hike down that particular year. So my mom and I parked and we were hiking down there. And there was a complete layer of fog over the whole valley floor. Because so when you go down that road, you actually, I mean, when I say go down, you actually go down, like you go down a hill. So you're at the base, like, of the valley along the Snake River. And so we were walking down. There was so much fog. If you did not know the mountains were there, you wouldn't know any mountains were there. Like you could not see them at all. So we just kept walking and we got to like the very end of the little trail where there's the framing of the Grand Teton and the trees. So we set up. You couldn't see anything. All you could see is fog. And then all of a sudden, like I think sunrise was maybe like 7:15 or something. All of a sudden, just before sunrise, the fog starts moving off like the top of those peaks that you can see between the trees. And the light hit the mountains. And within 15 minutes, it was all covered right back up again. And we walked out like, I mean, more light, but there was still like fog through the whole valley. It was crazy. It was just like, I mean, that's one of those situations though, too, that taught me like, you always go. Like, you never know.
Yes.
Like, the
Yes.
forecast might look terrible, but you go anyway. Like, whether that's like rain, fog, clear, like, you just don't know. Like, it might not be what they say. Or you get that perfect, like, 5 minutes of break, and that's your one shot. That's amazing, even if the rest of it is not, right?
Because it might not be what they say.
Right. It
Because
might
even if
not.
you get there and you're like,
Yeah.
fog sucked in, it might not
Yeah.
be.
Or and even if it mostly is, if it reveals for like 2 minutes, like,
It's going to be the
you never
best two
know.
minutes of your freaking
It
life.
could. It could. There was one morning, which it was, so I'm trying to figure out my years. It was November of 2023. I was with my friend Megan after my retreat in Banff, and we're like, oh, where should we go for sunrise? And we decided to go up to Lake Louise. And so we turned on the highway, and as we're driving, we're looking behind us, and like the sky is like all pink and crazy. And we're like, I think we just made the wrong choice where we're going. And it's like we were a little late, like we were tired from the whole retreat. And so we keep going, and it's sort of like pretty near Lake Louise. I'm like, oh, this is going to be okay. So we get there, we get out there, and it's like kind of pretty, but like just soft colors. And all of a sudden, the fog comes in. Literally taking one shot, and the fog covered the mountains completely. And we're just sitting there like, okay, we just left this like amazingly pink sunrise, like way back where we came from. And now we can't see the mountains. Like, what in the world? Like, this is so, I mean, near disaster, right? Like, that's like the worst when you're like, we went to the wrong spot.
When you want to photograph the mountains and they're not there. Yes.
They're not there. All I see is fog. And so we're like, well, the fog came in super fast. So the fog could go out super fast. So then, like, we're just sitting there, we're just waiting, and all of a sudden it starts thinning and the light's coming in a little bit. And yeah, thin enough. So it's like softly revealing most of the mountain and the sun, you know, the morning light's coming through. And it was like so pretty. And in the end, I think like that was one of my favorite shots from my whole entire trip. And I know like that sunrise, like where we left that was in Banff was amazingly like a burner, right? But I was like, you know what? I think I actually love this like ethereal, foggy, soft light more than I would have loved the bright, vibrant colors. And I know not everybody's like that. You know, some people just really want the blown up sky fire. But I really love the muted colors and that like mystery and atmosphere. So anyway, it was just like, okay, let's just see what happens. And, you know, I think the fog ended up coming back again after that. But I was like, doesn't matter. Like those few minutes were like all that just like, and the change, right? Like watching the different changes. I think that's one of the things too, is like just watching the way things change. You know, and you just never know. Like I had this other morning in Banff, I took my group in 2021 to Vermilion Lakes to photograph Mount Rundle at sunrise. And it was like a completely clear morning and there wasn't much color in the sky. It was kind of like just sort of a pretty but uneventful sunrise because the sun was coming up behind Mount Rundle. And I'm just kind of like, okay. And I'm like, well, we'll just wait and see what happens. Like, let's wait for the sun to come up because it was going to come up right behind the mountain and you could get like, you know, a sunburst when the sun comes up and then get some light in the foreground. Like 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes before the sun comes behind the mountain, all this fog rolls in. It was stunning. And then all of a sudden the sun comes up and just like lights all the fog and the foreground and all of a sudden everyone just shut up and was like, you know, sighing and clicking. And I mean, it was amazing. It was just all of a sudden, you just would have never known. It's like just one of those, like, just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And but it was not like, you would have not have known, like when you got there, like it just totally different than anything we were expecting at the time. So you just never know.
That's why you wait. I just think that's why you wait. You like take a minute and don't discount it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You never know what can happen.
Yeah. So there's a saying, the Norwegians have a saying, there's no bad weather, only bad clothing. And I think that relates to photography in this, well, with same thing, same bad clothing, bad gear, but also there's no bad weather, only a bad attitude or something like that. Like I want to say, because it really is all in how you think about it and your mindset around what the weather is, whether or not you're going to enjoy it, whether or not you're going to come away with a photograph, whether or not it's going to be an experience that you get something out of, you know, even if you don't take a photo. So,
I think that's definitely true. Like, it also is just different. It's not that there's bad light. It yields different opportunities. And I think to a certain extent, like some of us just are more drawn to certain opportunities or certain types of images. And sometimes the light that you're given isn't what you like most typically create. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that that's sometimes true. Like, I also think like sometimes that harsher daylight can really create some really dramatic black and white images, but I don't edit in black and white nearly as much as color. Like I see the opportunity, but the problem is then when I come home, I'm just more often going to go to something else, you know?
That's why I have a second body. It's an infrared. And then I just use that and create.
That's
That's
a
how I
good
do my black
plan.
and whites. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
it's easier for me when it's like sunny out or whatever,
Yeah.
to use that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just one of my tools that I use when I'm like, oh, I'm not seeing a photograph now. I
Hmm.
wonder what happens if I pull out my infrared. Like I wonder if it
Yeah.
looks interesting in that. And sometimes it does,
Yeah.
and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't have to make, again, like you said, I don't have to make
Yeah.
a photograph, you know?
Right. But you can just play and just see what happens, right?
Yes.
And the other thing is sometimes when you go, I mean, it can be helpful if you're just like kind of wandering and exploring and just letting yourself go to what speaks to you, because sometimes when we go to I mean, like in the Tetons or somewhere else where you have like, well, I'm going to this location for sunrise, and sunrise you're always guessing. I mean, you can get a weather educated guess, but you're always guessing. You don't know what's going to happen. Sunset still can be that way, but you have a little more idea, right? But sometimes you have like what is like at least like the direction that might be more typically shot for, for example. But like there was another morning we had a fog in the Tetons, and you couldn't really see, like the Grand showed up only a little bit. I was at the Barns that day, but the fog by the trees and toward the east and the light in other directions was amazing. So sometimes I feel like, you know, there can be that's the thing, is like, it might not be what you think you came for. Like the opportunities just might be in a different spot if you take the time to look around, right? So
I
just
love
never
that.
know.
It might not be what you think you came for.
Yeah. But I had a time this was early, like probably 2013, 2014. I drove to Oxbow Bend. I got up for the sunrise and I was in my car and it was raining. But I'm like, I already made my coffee. Like where my grandparents, that at that time I was at my grandparents' house in the Tetons. And I had to drive out of their house and get up to like kind of the main road to see what the weather even was. I mean, it was raining, but like can't get an idea of the clouds. And I'm like, well, I'm already in my car. Like I'll just keep going. And when I got there, it was still kind of raining. I sat there for a few minutes, and then it got closer to sunrise and a little more light was coming, and I got out. It stopped raining, but like, Moran, the, the show of Oxbow wasn't fully revealed, but there were all these dramatic clouds around it. And I thought it was really pretty. And I could envision it as a really cool, like dramatic black and white, even if the color didn't work out. But I thought it was very atmospheric and sort of mysterious. And there was like one other guy there, and just like, well, that was a total bust. And I was like, okay, like,
Bad clothing, bad
like,
clothing.
I'm like, for him, it was like just not at all what he wanted.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I saw some beauty in it that for me. So,
Hmm.
I guess you just never know.
I
But
mean, he had an idea of what it was supposed to be, or he had an expectation, and it wasn't. And that's okay. I think
yeah,
that's okay too.
it
And I
is
think
okay.
and I think we open ourselves up to more possibilities um, when we expand
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. I think so. And it's okay. I think it's okay to be like, yep, that wasn't what I wanted either. Or, I went and I enjoyed it and I took pictures, but I'm probably never going to edit those. Like,
oh, I
that's
have a
total.
lot of those.
Like, that's totally fine. Like,
Right.
and sometimes you just take them. I think sometimes we just take photos for documentation too. Like, there's a lot of different, there's a lot of different value. I think images, or I should say, images can have value for, I think, a lot of different purposes and reasons, right? They can like simply just document a memory and moment in time, or, they can, they can evoke emotion for you. They can be just a tremendous, amazing image that goes in your portfolio. They might be something, people who submit to competitions. Like, there are so many different things that we do with our images, and the value of an image isn't necessarily reliant on only one of those things.
Yeah. I use
So,
I take a lot of images as experiments to see what I like. Like out in the field, I wonder about this and then I bring it home. And I know it's an
Hmm.
experiment and I'm just seeing if I like it. That's all. I'm just seeing if
Right.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's how we learn, right?
Yeah,
And we learn to see
totally.
things in new ways by trying new things, and they don't always work, but I guess that's why we also call it a practice and a journey,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
This has been
So,
really lovely. Well, I want to
yeah.
say a couple quick things. I'm going to do this. I'm going
Okay.
to do this for you. I usually ask people if you want to adventure and journey with Kristen in the Tetons. She has, and I don't know if this will come out before April 1st, but she has 2 spots left in her June retreat, and she also has 1 spot left in her September retreat in Glacier National Park, which I've never been to either. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
go get this.
And September Tetons too. There's a couple
Oh
spots for
yeah,
September
let's see. Hang
Tetons.
on a
Yeah.
second. I will
Yeah.
tell you. 2 spots
I think
left
two.
for
Okay.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'll put a link to all the retreats in the episode notes, so it's just easy for y'all to look. You could just go in there and be like, oh, I love what Kristen said. I'd love to go with her and hang out with her and be with a bunch of other women who are doing amazing things. So I also want to mention one last thing that I am going to put in the notes. We didn't really talk about it, but we talked a lot about fog. And Michelle Sons, former guest on the podcast, my friend, she has an ebook called The Art of Fog, and she talks all about fog and how to photograph in the fog and just everything surrounding fog. So I'm going to
Yeah.
put a
She's
link.
amazing.
Right. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that because I'm going to put a link to that in the episode notes in case you are interested and you're like, I want to photograph more in fog and I want to understand more about it. So that is in there. Okay. Well, there you go. That was really fun, Kristen. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for
Thanks.
having me. It was great.
It was fun finally getting to like chat face to face after so many
Yeah.
years of like knowing you, because I know you were one of the first people that I knew about and the Women Capture Magic group. And I just really appreciate all that you're doing for women in photography. It's really incredible.
Thanks. Appreciate you inviting me on here. Glad it finally worked.
I know, right? Awesome. 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 Okay. Well, thanks for sharing your experiences. And that's it. That's it, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. Ready to elevate your photography? Go to wildwomanphotography.com for more details about co-ed retreats, women-only photography escapes, and personalized private mentoring. While you're there, you can also check out blog posts with episode transcripts and more. If you enjoyed this conversation, I'd love for you to support this podcast and all these incredible wild women in photography by leaving a review or sharing with a friend. Thanks so much for listening.